This $13 book made me an accidental quant trader. I'm not trying to sell you this book, but it changed my trading forever. It's the reason I decided to abandon discretionary trading for good. And it was $13. That's all it cost me. And the lessons inside have made me hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to be honest, I've never given it the credit it deserves. Now, what's the actual book I'm talking about? Well, it's The Man Who Solved the Market. It's the story of Jim Simons, the mathematician who beat Wall Street for 30 straight years using nothing but data. Now, I actually stumbled across it around a year into my trading journey when I was still doing the whole discretionary thing. I was drawing support and resistance lines, I was trying to feel the market, and I was trusting my gut overall. When I finished reading the book, it completely opened my eyes to one key thing, that the market can be solved with data and not intuition. And overall, the book introduced me to quantitative trading. Now, fast forward, I'm now 6 years into trading, and I am primarily fully automated, so now algorithmic trader. And a lot of what got me here traces back to the principles in this book. So in this video, I'm going to break down the 6 lessons from the man who beat the market for 30 years using data. Lessons that completely reshaped how I trade and how I think about trading as a business. But first, let me tell you a bit about Jim Simons. Because here's the thing most people don't realize. Jim Simons wasn't always a quant. He actually started trading purely discretionary, just like the most of us. His first trading venture actually worked for a while, but it was gut-wrenching and inconsistent. And if that sounds familiar, it definitely does, at least to me, from my earlier years. Here's actually him talking about his experience in the early years trading discretionary.
If you're doing fundamental trading, one morning you come in, you feel like a genius. You know, your positions are all your way, and you think, God, I'm really smart. And look at all the money I made overnight. And then the next day you come in and they've gone against you, and you feel like an idiot. We were pretty good at it, but it just didn't seem to be a way to live your life. By 1988, I decided it's going to be 100% models, and it has been ever since.
But once he decided to go fully model-based, the results speak for themselves. His fund, Renaissance Technologies, produced an average annual return of 66% before fees over 30 years. Now, after fees, that was around 39%, but keep in mind, he was still generating 66% in returns. And all of this was through using data to make trading decisions, not opinions, not gut feelings, just data. So now we know who he is, let's get into these 6 lessons from him. The first one, hopefully you see it coming, but it's data obsession. In the early days, Simons literally sent people to the Federal Reserve to manually copy data by hand. While other traders were reading news tickers and watching the news, Renaissance was collecting decades of clean data that nobody else had. Here's a quick clip of him reciting the story.
And, bringing in data. In those days, we sent gals down to the New York Federal Reserve to copy histories of interest rate numbers. I mean, they didn't exist in the 70s. You couldn't go and buy data, and there was certainly not online deliveries of all this stuff. So
this edge alone was worth billions, and the focus on data at the time was generally groundbreaking. It got to the point where one person became fully dedicated just to the collection and cleaning of some of that data by hand. Now, obviously that grew into a huge team over the years. Originally, the objective was very simple: search for patterns in the data that gave even the slightest edge. And they tested everything in data. This is a small part from the book where you can see they tested hundreds of financial metrics. They did even social media feeds, obviously later into the years, not, when they started, and pretty much anything that can be quantified and tested. They really didn't care how weird that data was. If it had predictive power, they used it. Now, for us retail traders, we obviously don't have the resources Renaissance Technologies had, but the principle still holds. Your edge starts with data, clean, tested, and verified data. And you do actually have one sort of advantage compared to them in the old days. Nowadays, data is very accessible. You can download data, you can go to APIs. However, keep that in mind. It's open to more people, there's going to be more competition. But that doesn't mean you can't be successful using data. Still, most of funds nowadays are quant funds, and at least from my own experience, becoming systematic was a lot easier than being discretionary, just because discretionary takes years and years and years of intuition, and you'll never really know if you actually have a bulletproof edge. Whereas in data, I can clearly look at my backtests and my own robustness testing and say this has a particular edge. Now, the second key lesson is slavishly use the models. Once they went 100% systematic in the late 1980s, Simons had a very strict rule. You follow what the model says, no matter how smart or dumb it might seem in the moment. No overrides, no second guessing. Now, to be fair, because I always see this anytime I mention this around Jim Simons, he did override his models twice. Once during the dot-com bust and once during the quant quake. Now, some people view this as a flaw. They think, hey, he can't stick to his model, so why should we take advice to it? But I would like to challenge any of you to trade a system for 30 years without overriding their model. This is a incredibly daunting task, and most people would have done it hundreds of times. Especially because I know a lot of newer systematic traders, most people override their model within the first week. So the fact he only did it twice in 30 years tells you everything you need to know about him and his discipline. And this is the hardest lesson really for most traders, because you will be sitting there, your model is telling you to take a trade, and everything in your body is screaming no. Or the model just stays flat and you want to get in, for example. That is the battle of being systematic and algorithmic as a trader. And ultimately, the answer should always be the same. Trust the model.
If you're going to trade using models, you just slavishly use the models. You do whatever the hell it says, no matter how smart or dumb you might think it is at that moment. And that turned out to be a wonderful decision.
Now, lesson 3 is infrastructure investment. While other funds focus solely on strategy, Simons obsessively built world-class computing and execution systems. This allowed his team to focus on research and not fighting with technology limitations. This is something I see so many traders overlook. They spend all the time on strategy development, but their execution is manual, their backtesting is very sloppy, and their infrastructure is held together with tape. Infrastructure itself can be an edge. If your systems execute faster, more reliably, with fewer errors than someone else running the same strategy, ultimately you win. It's not glamorous, but it does definitely matter. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, that's too daunting to have all of this infrastructure. Of course, I'm not saying you need to build your own market-making infrastructure and connect lines directly to the exchange, but having better backtests, automating your own execution so you don't have to be manually placing those trades, so there's less errors, there's less human-prone errors as well. That is part of infrastructure as well, which gives you an advantage. And by the way, if you're enjoying this and you want to actually build your first live algo in 2026, check out the Crypto Momentum group. We've been significantly outperforming on crypto recently, and it really just comes down to all the lessons in this particular video. We go over data-driven decisions and automating execution. Link in the description if you're interested, but let's keep going. Now, number 4 is explore new markets. Simons had a quote that I love. If it's publicly traded, liquid, and amendable to modeling, we trade it. Here's the full context around that saying.
Starting in those areas that I mentioned, currencies, financial instruments, gradually moving to stocks, and finally to anything that moved. Well, it had to be tradable, it had to be liquid. Was always liquid. But
now, unlike discretionary traders who get emotionally attached to one specific market, Renaissance Technologies only cared about one thing. Do we have alpha here? If it had enough data and liquidity, they would trade it. And this is something I've applied in my own trading. I trade futures, cryptos, equities. I really don't care what the market is. I care about whether my data tells me there's an edge that I can exploit. And the more diversification you have, the better you can take advantage of what is considered the holy grail in trading. The more low correlation strategies you run, the better, because you get higher risk-adjusted returns. If you need more context about that, feel free to check out my video about the holy grail in trading, which goes over how Ray Dalio, one of the biggest hedge fund managers in the world, explains it. Now, lesson number 5 is large sample size. Data wasn't just vital for discovering alpha, it was crucial for verification, because Simons understood something that most traders ignore, the law of large numbers. With sufficient samples, results converge to the true expected value. Here's him quickly explaining it.
you're looking for anomalies. You're looking for, like you said, the efficient market hypothesis.
But any one anomaly might be just a random thing. So is the secret here to just look at multiple strange anomalies and see when they align?
Well, any one anomaly might be a random thing. However, if you have enough data, you can tell that it's not. You can see an anomaly that's persisted for a sufficiently long time, so that the probability of it being random is not high.
This is why backtesting on 20 trades means nothing. This is why if you say, it worked last week, means absolutely nothing. You need large sample sizes to know if you're seeing something that is actually real or just noise. And this is one of the biggest mistakes I see traders make. They test a strategy on a tiny sample. They see good results, they go live, and then they wonder why it falls apart. You just didn't have enough data to actually verify. And most of the time, people put way too much significance on results that aren't actually significant. For example, if you do a backtest on 20 trades and it says you're going to do 100% returns each year, I can already tell you that's not going to happen. You have 20 trades, it's not enough to actually say if that's truly predictive. If you had 2,000, 5,000 trades and you had a solid backtesting infrastructure and then it said that same result, that's something I could more believe, but obviously you'd still see how it works on live. Now, lesson number 6 is the system is always leaking. Even the best edges decay over time. Markets change, edges get crowded, and what worked last year might not work next year. Simons understood this deeply, which is why continuous research was so valuable at Renaissance Technologies. It kept him ahead while other funds fell behind. And this is also why he was such a big advocate for collaboration within the fund. It bred creativity and curiosity. Nobody rested on past results. And this applies to all of us. The markets are not static. Your research really shouldn't be either. I have many profitable strategies at the moment, but I'm constantly researching new ways I can improve them or new edges I can exploit that are maybe shorter term inefficiencies, but that can add some returns to the portfolio. So if you're still trading based on gut feelings and intuition, I really hope this video opened your eyes the same way it opened mine when I first read this book.